Speaking of money, a story tonight about just how tough it is for young Americans to make it as they pursue their careers. And the president's health care law is not making it any easier. My colleague Brett Baer takes a look.
The struggles of young Americans in a floundering economy. It's become a constant refrain.
It's the same story everywhere I go. I just can't find the job. They say it's not there for you.
For the young person who's just graduated from college and wants to find a job, they can't, so they get to stay at their parents' house for a little bit longer.
Some of our brightest 24-year-olds are not in the marketplace producing.
When President Obama was elected in 2008, more than two-thirds of millennials said he made them feel hopeful.
Because of what we did on this day, in this election, at this defining moment, change has come to America.
But now, those same young Americans are facing tough times, with potentially even tougher times ahead, leaving many of them confused and pessimistic about their future.
My generation is bearing the brunt of this awful economy, and as we get further into the future, we're going to pay more and more of those costs. I talk to young people across the country right now, and they're extremely frustrated with the status quo.
And it all circles back to one four-letter word: jobs. The unemployment crisis young Americans face is astonishing when you look at the numbers. June's unemployment numbers show teens from 16 to 19 years of age have an unemployment rate of 24%. That's nearly double the unemployment rate of 20 to 24, which stands at 13.5%, still way above the national average. Now, that rate dips dramatically, as you see here, as persons ages from 35 years, 45 years, unemployment rate still remains at levels below 6%. By the time you get to 55 years of age, unemployment stands at 5.3%. But the spectrum is pretty amazing to see. July's numbers were only slightly better. Those staggering unemployment numbers translate into a complete standard of living change for a whole generation of young people.
I think you can see some of the economic consequences happening now. So you see that millennials are living at home with their parents. They're not making major purchases like cars or houses. They're defaulting in large numbers on their student loans. And they're even postponing things like marriage and having children, all because of the economic challenges that they're facing.
All of this came up in the 2012 race.
College graduates should not have to live out their 20s in their childhood bedrooms, staring up at fading Obama posters and wondering when they can move out and get going with life.
The number of young adults ages 18 to 31 living in their parents' home, according to the Pew Research Foundation, has steadily risen in recent years. 2012's number, 36%, was the highest in at least 4 decades. Young people are finding themselves with a smaller net worth. The census shows that, for example, back in 2005, those 35 years and younger had a net worth of around $7,700. Those 65 and over had assets of $177,000. Well, in 2009, that net worth took a big nosedive for young people. Their net worth was cut in half to less than $3,500. Those of retirement age had about $169,000 to their name. Now, at last check, in 2011, the net worth of those 35 years and younger started to come back up to the 2005 levels with about $6,600 in assets. The older generation's assets grew slightly to $170,000. That older generation also enjoys programs, Social Security and Medicare, that are being funded by young people who may not enjoy the benefits of those programs later in life.
There has to be an adjustment. Right now, we promised growing support to the elderly. It's actually growing over time in real terms. That means adjusted for inflation. And so it does cause an imbalance. And who pays for those larger payments? Well, it's workers, it's younger people.
An 18-year-old's lifetime share of the national debt is nearly $1 million right now, and that's the debt that we've already accumulated and that we're set to accumulate. We don't expect, there's a paltry number of us that think that Social Security is actually going to be there for us. You talk to a retirement advisor right now, and they say, Don't plan on Social Security being part of your retirement if you're under a certain age, because it's simply not going to be there. So there's a real political will for young people to support political leaders who are going to go ahead and say, let's address these long-term challenges for our country.
And Obamacare may add fuel to the fire.
It tapped the same population that is already going to be overtapped for the pre-existing entitlements and made them pay for this new entitlement, a lot of it indirectly through premiums, some of it through taxes. So, we have made the situation of our entitlement system worse, not better, because of the law.
Meanwhile, student loan debt is piling up more and more each year. At the end of 2008, the average student loan balance for Americans under 30 was $17,000. By the end of President Obama's first term, it had risen to well over $20,000.
How are they going to pay off their student loan debt? How are they going to pay off their credit card debt? That's why they're back living with mom and dad. They just don't have the financial means to get out from under. And if you look forward, look to the future, it looks grim.
So what can be done to help this generation thrive? Last week, President Obama unveiled a broad new plan during a 2-day campus bus tour that he says will make college education more affordable.
First, we're going to start rating colleges, rate them on who's offering the best value so students and taxpayers get a bigger bang for their buck. Number two, we're going to jumpstart new competition between colleges. And the third is we're going to make sure that if you have to take on debt to earn your college degree, that you have ways to manage and afford it.
Critics like Senator Marco Rubio of Florida say college should be more affordable, but imposing new federal standards on higher education is not the way to do it. Rubio says, quote, President Obama needs to realize that not every problem can be solved by giving more power to Washington bureaucrats. But some argue that the government must get more involved in creating opportunities, even if it means avoiding certain spending cuts for now.
We should start by, for example, ending short-sighted spending cuts to national service programs like AmeriCorps that give young people the opportunity to get training for jobs. We should expand access to education and training, particularly types of training that we don't use as much in the U.S., like apprenticeships, which allow young people to work and gain the skills that employers need.
But others insist that young people realize they can create their own solutions instead of waiting for the government to help them.
The average age of an entrepreneur in America today is the age of 26. Another study found the most successful startups were started by people of the average age of 24. My generation is poised to help. We're ready to create and innovate. You don't transform society through the status quo and old ideas. The transformative ideas come from the next generation. So there's every reason to be optimistic. But we cannot be optimistic unless public policies get government out of the way, remove the albatross of big government policies and costs from around our necks, and let us create, unencumbered by the past bad decisions of politicians who cared more about their next election than the next generation of Americans.
In Washington, Brett Baer, Fox News.